Hey there. So I got a short and sweet one today. I'm going to be doing a discussion about 10 cards from the first set of Star Wars Unlimited that I think have a really good shot of breaking out with the second set. These cards, not all of them see no play right now, but I don't think any of them are featured prominently in most meta decks. And I think that could change with the addition of this next set. Just a quick disclaimer, there will be discussion here about cards coming out in Shadows of the Galaxy. There'll be some images of those cards as well. If that's something you don't want to see right now, you don't want spoilers for the second set, then this won't be the right video. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there. All right, so yeah, the cards are sorted in rarity for the most part. So we'll start with this common card, Disabling Fangfighter. So this card sees play right now. I mean, it's a pretty solid card. Upgrade removal has become more important, especially with the addition of control decks playing Entrenched and as removal. I think for two reasons this card is going to see even more play in the second set. First of all, there's tons of upgrades. It's a pretty upgrade-focused set, both because bounties are upgrades and they're a major part of set 2, and additionally because Mandalorians, which is another focus of the set, rely a lot on upgrades. So there's a lot of upgrade synergy for Mandalorians. There's a lot of new upgrade cards to put on Mandalorians, and that in combination with the fact that there's going to be a lot more like random upgrades running around, like the bounties, and additionally there's some upgrades that also capture units, which is another new mechanic. I think this card is just going to be almost mandatory for any red deck, and additionally this card itself has the Mandalorian trait, which means for these Mandalorian synergy decks, this might just be like an auto main deck inclusion too. So I think there's a lot of like future potential for this card to like really break out, even though it's already seeing a good amount of play. All right, number 9 here, General Tag, I believe is how you pronounce it. This card doesn't really see any play right now. It's hard to make a Trooper Synergy deck, but we got a few things coming out soon. Moff Gideon, the starter leader for villain. He comes in that starter deck with a decent trooper, like the Incinerator Trooper. I think just his deck in particular, especially with how they previewed his starter set, it includes a lot of troopers. His build looks to be focused on low to the ground unit combat. He's going to want to probably have a lot of cheap units. These cheap units are going to want to be trading up in value because his ability triggers when units attack other units, which is a good ability to have with this Incinerator Trooper that does its damage before taking any damage back. But because of this unit-focused, board-centric combat deck, I think General Tag is probably going to be pretty decent in a build like this. You're going to want to have a lot of low-to-the-ground units, a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops, I think ideally. I mean, if we see some really good troopers at 1 cost, I think I'll be much more excited for him, so, like with the potential to like go double 1-drop turn 1 and then play him on turn 2 and immediately getting a substantial buff. But I don't think it's even out of the question that you'll get the full 3 experience, which obviously for a 2-cost unit, bringing in 5 power at once is very strong. So I do think there's going to be some potential for this guy. All right, number 8. It's the only leader I've put on this list. One of my favorites, Grand Inquisitor. I do not think he's quite ready for prime time right now. I think there's a good chance that's going to change. We're less than halfway through previews for this set. We already seen some really crazy stuff that synergize very well with his ability. Basically 3 attack units with big health pools. We got a 3/6 at 4 cost with Django, a 3/7 with Chrysanthemum. Both of these units are also pretty aggressive. One of them absolutely demolishing things with bounty. The other one coming into play ready when there's a bounty in play, which means he could possibly even attack twice in 1 turn or 3 times with Grand Inquisitor. And then punishing one, just like one of the best statted 3-cost ships in the game, which also has bounty synergy. Grand Inquisitor already lends itself to being an aggressive build, And these units are all pretty aggressive. The bounty in red is aggressive. It's the one that just deals damage to the opponent's base. I just think there's going to be a lot of potential for this guy. Right now, I'm most excited to pair him with yellow. It's currently what I think is probably his strongest build, and I think that will improve even more with some additional cards, and the fact that the yellow low-cost units, their 2 and 3 drop units, work very well with Grand Inquisitor's ability. So I think the card pool is now getting wide enough for him that he's got units all across the curve that he works well with, and I think we are going to see this finally come together in set 2. All right, number 7, Meeko. This, I think, this one's tough. I mean, the unit itself is not very powerful at 3/3 for 3. I just keep coming back to this ability of basically adding attacks on all your opponent's events, making them cost 1 more. And that is just notoriously, in my mind, a strong ability. I played Magic the Gathering. That ability is cracked in Magic the Gathering. I know here it's harder to keep this guy in play because they can attack your units. It's not like Magic where that can't happen. But I've learned enough about this ability, I think, as a whole, that I think there's very much a potential for it to become even more impactful, especially when certain deck archetypes might emerge that rely much more on on-curve events. I think there's just a decent chance. And like I already think he can be fringe playable in some blue control decks, especially in certain matchups. He provides a pretty powerful ability. All right, number 6, Emperor Palpatine. I mean, this guy's pretty good. He's run in like Vader green decks, right? Vader green decks right now, and like Palpatine red decks, right? I think the card itself is strong. It's just not blowing anyone out of the water. I don't think it's in really best deck territory right now. But this card's coming out. Emperor Palpatine's Return, or just Palpatine's Return. All right, it costs 6. It brings back a force unit from your discard pile and makes it cost 2 less. So for 6, you get to play Emperor Palpatine. And you know what's better than an 8-cost Emperor Palpatine is a 6-cost Emperor Palpatine. This card is nuts at 6. As someone who's played Sneak Attack with Emperor Palpatine, this ability on a discount is nuts, right? Like, what holds this back is the 8. It's that it's not always crazy impactful at 8. At 6, it's basically Overwhelming Barrage that's also spotting you as 6/6. That's nuts. And Palpatine's Return, I think, is going to be not too difficult to enable. There's already like Force Throw, which you can discard your own units. Bonus for that, you discard your own Palpatine, you throw it for 8 damage at something, bring it back next turn, wipe their board again. Additionally, there's a new leader. I'm not going to talk about him right now, but he's got self-discard synergy. So it's not going to be too hard to dump Palpatines in your discard pile. I think just because the existence of this card, Palpatine is just going to go up in play rate. And yeah, I think it's going to be very strong. All right, number 5, Frontline Shuttle. This card's like cute. Basically like paying 2 to give something pseudo ambush, right? It's it like sits in play. It's like pretty easy to remove if your opponent wants to. The issue this card has is you can't attack base with it, and that I think is really what has held it back. And I'm not convinced this is going to be enough to completely elevate it, but we just talked about Palpatine coming out early, and Palpatine has Overwhelm. And then we got Wrecker coming out, 6-cost 7/6 Overwhelm that immediately demolishes a unit your opponent has. I think with Frontline Shuttle, potentially like doing something like an Energy Conversion Lab ambush with Wrecker to do a bunch of Overwhelm damage, and then using Frontline Shuttle to let Wrecker attack again. Notably, he can attack because Frontline Shuttle does let an exhausted unit attack. I think that some of this has some potential. I don't think it's crazy to think that like Frontline Shuttle will be good here. It works a little different than like the Timely Reinforcement card, which gives units ambush because you have to pay for the unit at the same time. So you're actually adding attacks onto that unit, while Frontline Shuttle, you can like prepay for it, right? You play it the turn before you play Wrecker. So Wrecker still costs 6. You don't need like 7 or 8 resources to ambush with Wrecker. So I think there's a chance that we'll see some Frontline Shuttle stuff. Again, it's not like really purely an aggro card because you have to attack units. But if we pair it with a bunch of overwhelm stuff, being able to push a bunch of base damage in addition to clearing units off the board might be pretty strong. All right, number 4, Jabba the Hutt. Sees a little bit of fringe play, like in a mono yellow Boba deck. Sometimes it pops up in there. I don't really see it anywhere else except in my like Grand Inquisitor yellow builds, which are not meta. But I think that's going to change because this card's a trick, and this card is really strong. McClunky, allowing you to bounce back an underworld unit and then deal 3 to something. That card will cost 0 when you have Jabba in play. Jabba will also go find it more often. I think this McClunky card is going to be very premium in the next set, and I think it's going to be a decent reason to stick Jabba the Hutt in your deck, and then like probably get a few other tricks in. There are a few others that I think are worthy of slots in decks. We got Waylay, you got Asteroid Sanctuary, which is like okay sometimes. We got Shoot First, very good for beating off aggro decks. Sneak Attack is a trick. So yeah, I think Jabba the Hutt is going to be really solid. I think McClunky is going to help that a lot. I think the fact that he also works pretty well in Grand Inquisitor because he's got a big health pool allows him to get more attacks in throughout the game. All this put together, I think we got a breakout potential here. All right, number 3, just mentioned it, Sneak Attack. I really like this card, and I think it's just going to grow in value as we get more good targets. Like Red Hero just got Wrecker, which is an incredible sneak attack target. And we already have like most of the good ones I think are in red. Like K2 is a good sneak attack target. In Villain, Ruthless Raider is a good sneak attack target. Emperor Palpatine can be. The Grand Inquisitor stuff, like all those 3 power units that we just talked about, even Django, who can hit for 6 sometimes, are good sneak attack targets because Grand Inquisitor lets them attack twice. So you're getting even like basically double value out of your sneak attack for that turn. Also, we just talked about McClunky. If you sneak in an underworld unit, you can then bounce that unit back to your hand before sneak attack makes you defeat it, get your 3 damage. And even if it's not an underworld unit, you can still actually just return it to your hand for 1 cost. And then essentially you just paid cost for that unit, but it had an automatic attack. I think sneak attack is going to be really solid, and I think we're going to be able to build some decks featuring this card that will potentially be tournament ready. All right, number 2, one of 2 legendaries on this list is Black 1. Well, this card doesn't see that much play right now. I think mostly the best place for it has been in red Han decks because, you know, Han dumps his hand pretty quickly with his resource ability, and then a 6 cost Black 1 to refill his hand the turn he comes out is pretty solid. But I think there's something else that's going to help here. I've already mentioned this card a bunch. I think a deck topping out at 6 for Wrecker and not planning on going past 6 resources is naturally going to be a deck that wants to play a lot of cheaper cards. If we're not going high in a curve, we want low curve units. And I think in combination with Wrecker, having this as the other 6 drop in your deck is going to be pretty powerful for this style of aggressive build. I think Black 1 has got a good shot at becoming a very popular card in the next set. All right, lastly, aggression. Mono red I don't think is very good right now. I think the closest to a good mono red deck we have is a Sabine build, but I still think it is a notch below the yellow and green versions of Sabine, unless you care only about killing Lieutenant Childson, in which case aggression does that very well. But I think this could very well change. First of all, this defeats 2 upgrades. We already talked about how Disabling Fang Fighter is probably going to be core in the next set. This being built-in upgrade removal is going to be great, especially because this is such a powerhouse card if it's enabled by a mono red deck, that just having incidental answers to like a bunch of decks because, like, yeah, I expect a lot of decks are going to be playing bounties and upgrades, and just having this card in your deck with like the main intention of probably doing 4 to something and writing something, but just having this out for all these decks that are going to be playing upgrades is going to be really strong. Additionally, I think this card pool is growing enough right now that mono red is going to become more viable. I already showed 3 really good mono red cards that have been previewed already. There's a few more coming this week. And then I also expect, I can't confirm, I have no idea, but I expect more double aspect cards will be previewed at some point, at which point hopefully all the double aspect decks become more buildable. But I mean, some of like Cunning and Vigilance are already basically 3-ofs in very competitive decks, so I don't think those have like that much room to grow as far as that when compared to Aggression, which is not played that much. The card itself is very powerful. It's aggressive, right? I think you're going to want to play this in an aggro deck, which in Villain has been pretty difficult because up until now we didn't have that many aggressive units. I think that's going to change, right? Django, Chrysanthemum, Punishing One, all those have 3 power. They can all be readied by Aggression. So yeah, I think this card is going to be in a very good deck coming when set 2 is released. All right, that's it. That's what I got. Kept it reasonably short, I think. Let me know what you think of these 10 cards. Let me know if there's any other cards that you think have potential breakouts to them with the release of set 2. If you like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to me. And yeah, until next time, take care.